Human beings have always had the need to measure things, like how far is it from my house to the store? Or will my couch fit through the door? If not, we might need to get creative. Or how much water will this jug hold? To find the measurements and the answers to these questions, and questions similar to these, we need to think about the dimensions we need to measure. So, what are dimensions? Dimensions are the measurement of length in one direction. As human beings, we live in a 3D world. You've probably heard people say that, or you've gone to see 3D movies. So, what that means is we can measure things in up to 3 different directions. We have one direction or one dimension, 2 directions or 2 dimension, and 3 directions or 3 dimensions. Let's take a look at things we can measure in one direction. As you can see here, things that we can measure in one direction are called lines. And we can measure this line from here to here. That's a horrible arrow. Let's try that again. There we go. All right, things we can measure in 2 dimensions or in 2 directions are called rectangles. They can also be squares, but squares have this direction actually is the same as this direction for a square. However, because these two are not quite the same, it's called a rectangle. And lastly, things we can measure in 3 dimensions or in 3 different directions are called prisms. That's right, prisms. And we could measure this shape in 3 different directions. So we could measure from here to here, from here to here, and then the 3rd dimension is from here to here. Now let's measure these 3 objects. In order to measure something, though, first we need to define a unit of measure. So usually we use like centimeters, millimeters, meters, but for this activity we're going to use this little pink line here as 1 unit of measure. Okay, so this is 1 unit. All right. When we measure an object in one direction, it's called length. And to measure the length of this line here, this white line, we're going to bring these units up. Okay, so this is 1 unit, and it's about 2 units. It's not exact, but it's okay. So let's call this 2 units. That's the length of our white line. All right. Now let's measure an object in 2 directions. Okay, next we're going to measure a 2-dimensional object. So when we measure a 2-dimensional object, we call that area. So we want to find the space inside. Okay, to do that, let's take one of our units over here. And then, so we've got 1 unit in that direction. Then we've got 2 units in that direction. So if I want to kind of fill in these lines, right, this would have an area of 2 square units. Two square units. Next, let's measure the 3D object. So we have a prism here, and we want to find the entire space that this prism occupies. So when we measure this object in 3 directions, so we would measure this way, and finally this way, we're going to be measuring then the volume. Okay. In this picture, they've already kind of cut this prism up into square blocks. So you can see this is one block, one 3D block, and that's going to be 1 cubic unit. Okay, so we can count. This side here is 4 units. I'm just going to make a little 4 here. Okay, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on this side we have 1, 2, 3. And then the other direction is going up. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we've got, I'm going to make that a different color, 3 kind of going up. Okay, so if we kind of look only at this first layer, if I look at this first layer, if you only look at the top part, we can see all of the blocks, right? We've got these 3 here, 1, 2, 3, similar to the bottom. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Same as the bottom. And we just got 1 high, right? So if we wanted to measure the volume of this top part here, we can count all the squares, right? Let's go do that. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's right. And then you can imagine that there's another set of these 12 in the second row. And there's another set of these 12 in the third row. So let's take that, this top part here we found is 12 times the 3 layers, or the 3 units high that we have. And 12 times 3 is 36. Yeah, you're right. So we've got 36 cubic units. So to kind of summarize everything that we've learned, we can measure things in up to 3 different directions, right? So we can have 1 dimension, 2 dimension, and 3 dimension. What is it called if we measure something in 1 direction? Right, length. What is it called if we measure something in 2 different directions? Yep, area. And finally, what if we measure something in 3 different directions? Right, volume. All right, that's it for today's lesson, and we'll see you tomorrow.